Call to order the Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, August 18th, 2016. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Harlicker, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Stevens?
Here.
Commissioner Knobloch?
Here.
Commissioner Casey?
Here.
Commissioner Schmolke?
Here.
Commissioner Stevenson?
Here.
Chair Schwartz?
Here.
Let the record show that Commissioner Haas is absent.
Our first piece of business is to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Stevenson, second by Stevens. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The agenda has been adopted. Our next piece of business is to approve the minutes from the July 21st meeting.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Stevens, second by Casey. Any discussion or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Our first piece of business this evening is planning case 15-31, a conditional use permit and site plan for expansion of outdoor storage area, 9900 Vale Street, Mayflower Properties. Mr. Harlicker.
Hi, Commissioners and Chair Schwartz. The applicant is proposing an addition to the outdoor storage area of the Coon Rapids mini storage facility at 9900 Vale Street. The property here is highlighted, outlined in black. Vale Street on the north, Coon Rapids Boulevard and East River Road on the west and south, and then the railroad tracks on the east. The existing site, it's got the indoor storage facilities here and about 60,500 square feet of outdoor storage in this area here. The site is encumbered by a wide utility easement that runs from the railroad tracks to this point here and extends the length of the property. A brief history of the site. This originally received site plan approval back in 1987, and this portion of the site was constructed in 1988. The original site plan was proposed for 2 phases, with the outdoor storage extending the length of the property along the railroad tracks and the storage buildings extending along out in this area here. As you can see, the second phase was never constructed. The applicant is proposing to reconfigure this portion of the outdoor storage area and then add about 26,000 square feet of new storage area, and that's in this area here. Here's what's being proposed. They're taking out they're reconfiguring the existing storage area and putting in a stormwater pond here to bring the site up to current stormwater management practices. Curb and gutter around all the existing paving, and then extending the outdoor storage area into this area here. The dotted line around here is the edge of the grading, so you can see none of the existing vegetation on the property is going to be removed or impacted. When this project was originally approved, it did not require a conditional use permit The property was zoned industrial, and this just required site plan review. Since that time, the zoning has changed. It is still industrial, but it's also within the River Rapids Overlay District, which is essentially a design district that runs along Coon Rapids Boulevard. As such, now this particular type of use requires a conditional use permit as well as site plan review. And that's what they're applying for tonight is conditional use permit for the site, and then site plan approval for the expanded outdoor storage area. Couple things that should be noted here. Compliance with a conditional use permit. There are two standards specific to outdoor storage and mini storage facilities that is applicable to the River Rapids Overlay District. One is that it's not feasible to install a public sidewalk to serve the facility because of the slope coming up from Coon Rapids Boulevard and East River Road here. It's not practical to be able to put a sidewalk in that would be compliant with ADA requirements because of the slope and the cutbacks. The other condition is that it be screened from view from Coon Rapids Boulevard. As you can see, there is a lot of existing vegetation along here and some large overstory trees around here. The applicant will be installing additional screening and landscaping along this area here. Nothing can be planted underneath the power line easements because of the limitations and the restrictions that are in place there. But additional landscaping will be provided along this area here to screen it from Coon Rapids Boulevard. Another item that I'd like to bring up is setting some conditions as to what can be stored on site. Because of the visibility of the site, staff is recommending that the following items be prohibited from being stored on site. Special mobile equipment, which is essentially construction type equipment, semi-tractors, indoor trailers, ground level storage containers, storage of loose or bulk material such as sand, gravel, salt, because of runoff potential, and trucks exceeding 24 feet in length or 25,000 pounds in gross vehicle weight. And in addition to that, the applicant worked with staff on a striping plan for the outdoor storage area to help keep it organized. In addition to that, since the site is going to be surrounded by curb and gutter, that'll also make sure that stuff that's stored on site stays on the pavement. Right now, curb and gutter has not been installed, and that tends to lend itself to cars and stuff just being pulled in and parked wherever they can. So that'll be cleaned up and organized as a result of this application. In planning case 15-31, staff is recommending that the request be continued to next month to give staff and applicant an opportunity to put together a formal landscaping plan for the commission to review. Staff's recommending that the public hearing be opened and then continued to the September meeting.
That's new to us tonight, right? We didn't
Correct.
see that in the
Yep.
packet. Okay.
And the applicant is here to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Commission, any questions of Mr. Harlicker?
I have one, please.
Commissioner Stevens?
What about fencing? What kind of fencing can we ask for, or, you know, I mean, is it just gonna continue to be like chain link, or can we ask it to be, so you can't see through it, like a wood fence, or?
You could certainly ask Commissioner Stevens, you could certainly ask for some sort of fence along the perimeter of the storage area. Right now, the site is surrounded by a chain link fence.
Right, yeah, but we can ask for something that's.
They
more
could, that
soft.
could be tied into the screening of the site.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
So, Mr. Harlicker?
Commissioner Casey.
Thank you. The recommendation number 6 then, about the cash escrow for the installation of the sidewalk, is that, you're saying that's not applicable here?
Well, Chair, Commissioner Casey and Chair, it's been the city's policy to collect cash or have the applicant install sidewalks when they've been identified abutting their property. And in this case, the city's sidewalks and trail plan shows a sidewalk that runs from the extension here in the old bridge along East River Road, under the bypass, and then continuing south along the east side of East River Road. So we're recommending that the applicant would be responsible, like any other applicant, to either installing the sidewalk or setting aside funds for future installation of that sidewalk. We are working with Public Works and the legal department and the applicant for a possible alternative to coming up with the cash, such as maybe a developer's agreement that could be recorded at the county. But that'll be worked out by the September's meeting.
What did you say then, clarify please, about the slope of that East River Road, that it wouldn't be an ADA compatible sidewalk? Am I referring to something else?
Right.
Okay.
To run a sidewalk up from East River Road up into the site, because it's such a steep hill going up there.
Into the site?
Into the site,
I thought
correct.
it would be
Not
adjacent to.
along the bottom
Yeah.
of the hill. Correct.
That clarifies it, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Stevenson.
a couple of questions. One, glad you're mindful of the sidewalk along East River Road. Anyone who's ever driven through there in rush hour and seen someone walking along the side of the road knows that sooner or later we do need a trail or a sidewalk there. Can you clarify a couple of questions about the restriction of what can be stored there? First of all, what is commonly stored there now? Second, would the restrictions apply to the entire site or just the expansion in terms of what can be stored there? I got a couple
Okay.
more, but maybe I'll give you those two first.
All right. The condition would apply to the entire site. And right now, there are no limitations as to what can be stored out there.
Okay.
It's kind of we do have all kinds of everything from construction equipment to sand and gravel being stored out there.
So if these restrictions went into effect, what would be stored out there? What kind of stuff does the applicant anticipate? Or maybe this is a question that you would
That
refer
should
to
be
the
some,
applicant.
but right now, there's some large RVs out there, commercial vehicles under 25,000 gross vehicle weight and 24 feet in length could be stored out there. There's some of those. Boats, other recreational equipment.
I'm glad you mentioned boats because we've had some consternation about boat storage along the boulevard in past meetings. And I wonder why staff didn't include boats in terms of the listed things that would be prohibited from being stored there.
Well, that's typically the type of material stuff that's stored at self-storage facilities. And in this case, it's not 20 feet off the boulevard. It's set back in a designated area.
So is ground level storage containers, if I'm imagining what I think I'm imagining, why are boats okay in ground level storage containers not?
Well, they've got the storage buildings there for people that want to store stuff inside. And again, it's more of a aesthetic consideration.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Harlicker, I have a question. The condition that you have, the way you have it worded, trucks exceeding 24 feet in length, would we be better off saying vehicles exceeding? Because, I mean,
Well, Chair, then you're limiting a lot of RVs, or most RVs are longer than that.
so you're saying RVs are all right, but
Yep.
trucks are not all right?
The reason I put the, that in there is because those are really commercial vehicles. You need a CDL license in order to drive those. I wanted to try to get away from it turning into more of a truck storage place as opposed to some residents going there to store stuff that they can't keep at their home or in their garage.
And
I
where
wanted to make a
would,
distinction between commercial vehicles and private vehicles.
and where would buses fall?
Buses would be allowed. I would consider those similar to an RV.
And when you said earlier that these conditions would cover the entire property if we were to pass this, however, they would have up to a year to come in compliance with the existing vehicles, correct?
Correct.
Commissioner Schwartz?
Commissioner Schmolke.
So one other question, do we know yet if they're going to designate a specific area for vehicle storage, et cetera? Are they going to try and clean it up a little bit that way?
I'll have to let the applicant
Okay.
address that.
Okay, I thought so, thank you.
Chair Schwartz.
Commissioner Appel.
I just have a question for concern. Due to its location and its high visibility, I'm kind of apt not to recommend to approve an expansion until the existing location is perhaps shown that it can be applying to some more of our recommendations for the area. So it's not really a question.
Statement.
Statement.
Does the petitioner wish to add anything? If so, please step up to the mic.
No, he indicates that he's all right.
He's coming up.
Unless there's any specific questions that I can help.
I do have a few
I do
questions for you.
Oh, that was an open invitation, right?
Could you give your name and address, please, for the record?
Sheldon Badson, Mayflower Properties, 7760 France Avenue South, Suite 1100, Edina, Minnesota 55435.
Commissioner Stevenson, you can,
So I guess my first question is, what do you anticipate being stored at this site if an expansion is approved?
Well, generally with self-storage, I mean, like was mentioned earlier, it's RVs, boats, campers. You know, I know you all talked about trucks. I mean, that's very common in a self-storage setting. What's there right now? When we purchased this property, June of 15, the appearance to us, no different than to any of you, is not acceptable. And so we've been working on this with staff for the last number of months, with our goal to improve the setting. We want to run and be known as a very well-organized, very nice-looking self-storage facility. And if any of you saw it a year ago when we got it versus today, it's drastically improved.
So the condition that's listed here, that would exclude trucks but allow campers and RVs and boats, that's kind of in keeping with what you have in mind for the site?
I might have some difference of opinion on the trucks. I don't, the trucks that are there, which basically we, I don't want to say inherited, but we're there and so-called grandfathered in. I can't stand here and say what that weight, the gross vehicle weight is. I don't know. The ones that are there, in my opinion, are in good appearance. If we're focused just on the trucks, there's the containers and the salt
I guess,
shack
yeah,
there.
I guess I'm more wondering about the, what you might call trailers and also containers and ground level storage. You know, looking particularly at the aerial photographs, you can see there's a lot of that there
there's a-
now, or
there-
there was when those photos were taken.
Right, there's a couple of containers there that were there when we acquired the property. A container like a sea container that would come over, you know, on a boat. That's generally not used. You know, we would intend to move them. I'm not sure how we're gonna move them, but we'll get them moved.
Okay. Thank you.
Commission, anyone else have any questions for petitioner? Well, then I'll start with a few of mine. Did you give any thought to having enclosed storage? In other words, one or two large buildings to store the outdoor equipment inside, so that it would clean up the entire look of the entire property?
To answer your question, no. We do have some future thoughts and expansion that would go in, you know, to additional buildings, but not for the vehicles. It doesn't make sense financially. Generally in storage, you know, you see the size units that we have there, the 10 by 20s, et cetera. I'm not saying that there aren't those kinds of buildings out there, but no, we haven't given that any consideration. You're talking about a building that would put some of these vehicles?
Correct. Like a large
tent.
building,
Little
like a
shed.
bus company uses to store their fleet of buses
With no
inside.
panel on the outside.
Yeah. No, I don't think it would be cost prohibitive, and I don't think it would make sense financially for us.
Next question I have is, I drove through the site within the last week and noticed that you had, as I recall, 3 of the ground level storage containers. There were a large number of vehicles with flat tires, making them totally inoperable. A large number of vehicles that had expired registration. And what are your thoughts on having those things come up to code requirements?
Well, we would deal with all that. I mean, I've seen the flat tires. You know, it's quite apparent to me, and I don't know all the tenants, that in an example where, let's say, a van that has a flat tire, this person, you know, has had it there for a number of months or years, for whatever reason, continues to pay rent to keep it stored at a property like ours. When this is expanded, a lot of this has to get moved, because we're gonna, you know, it's gonna be reorganized, so it'll look good. You know, at that time, we'd have to address each of those situations individually. Is that, when you have a situation where you're saying expired tabs, so you're saying that's a requirement that they be current tabs? Or is that's my...
Well, Mr. Johnson can correct me if I'm wrong here, but for a vehicle to be parked on private property, say in my own yard,
Yep.
it must have current tabs. Mr. Johnson?
The Chair Schwartz, that's true. I'm not sure exactly where those regulations are, if we have those in residential areas or if it's throughout the city. We'd have to take a look at that. I haven't researched that for this property.
Thank you. Who else had a question? Commissioner Schmolke?
Thank you. So, I guess to my original question, first of all, do you have any plans then for, I guess, shrinking down the area that the number of cars or the vehicles are being stored at right now, kind of compartmentalizing it a little bit more so it doesn't seem so spread out over the property? Would be kind of my first question, but I guess in listening to all of this, I get the sense that there is a plan out there. Maybe you could just speak to maybe a timeline for some of the changes that Mayflower has in store, so we could get a better appreciation for just how serious the needs are.
Given the time of year and given, you another month into further approval, this would be done in the spring of 2017 as soon as that type of work can begin. Our goal would be to, when you drive, if you've seen the site, okay, my goal would be when you drive in, you're not faced with all of these vehicles, and so we improve our initial appearance for the curb appeal, moving a lot of it back to the new expanded area. There still will be some storage along, parallel to the railroad, but it'll be further back.
Okay.
That brings me to another question then. You talk about curb appeal. How about curb appeal from up above off of Coon Rapids Boulevard off the overpass? I mean, what are your thoughts or plans to screen from up there?
Well, I mean, what's there now are the overstory trees. I'm not sure what you could do, because that overpass sits way up here and the facility's down here. I'm not sure. We talked about that, and I'm not sure what we could do to screen it any further. I think, my goal would be, because I've driven up there, I haven't liked the way it looks. My hope would be that once it's, we've got the additional asphalt expansion, and then once it's organized and lined up neatly, that when you're looking at it from up there, it'll just be better. Not sure of an answer on any further screening.
Because again, that would lend back to my original question of the large storage building to enclose the vehicles so that they couldn't be seen. Because I can't think of anything short of putting up camouflage netting that was used back in World War II to preclude the visibility from overhead.
Chair Schwartz.
Mr. Schmolke.
So do we think that part of the problem is the volume of vehicles there today that contributes to some of the maybe chaotic look that it might have in, with the other storage containers, et cetera, I guess, is that part of the concern, or do you think that might be possible? And if it is, if it's kind of the chaos, I understand the direction they're going and trying to clean it up and so forth, and I think that's very positive. I wonder, though, if we can't help that a little bit by, enforcing maybe or adding something where there's a limitation in a number of vehicles or something that could be stored outside. I mean, the types of vehicles that you're planning seem reasonable. I mean, that would be expected, I think, of a storage place, but to make sure that it doesn't just become too congested, and to your point, I think that they are limited in terms of when you're coming over that overpass. You're going to be, you have that view, and short of trying to get trees to grow really fast and put fences up, that just isn't possible. The cleanup is, I would assume, is a big part of this. Do we need to, though, help that to make sure that it doesn't get out of control by saying that it's like there can be so many, if you have, obviously with the parking lot being changed, being striped, et cetera, do we have an opportunity to limit the number of vehicles of certain types that maybe can be stored and so forth? I guess that's kind of a question to Scott as well.
Yeah, Commissioner Smolke, one of the things I was looking at the airfield, I've been out there a lot like everybody else. As you come across to what you're seeing now is this area right here. A chunk of that from the build is going to be removed. This area here is going to be turned into stormwater pond. So that's a good chunk of the most visible part of the storage area will be gone. The applicant has indicated that it seems to me that this area here is not going to be used for outdoor storage anymore, but more of an access to get back to this area. But he would be having some storage parallel to the railroad tracks in here. Is that accurate?
Correct.
So you know, with this plan, you are getting rid of the storage that's here, and then the storage along the front of the building, which would be, where is it here? You know, this stuff here, this line of things right in through here, and then this stuff here would be thinned out, for lack of a better term, and the bulk of it would be in this area here. So you've got the existing overstory trees. You could plant, you know, there's some fast-growing evergreens that are out there that, you know, within 3 to 5 years they'll be 20 feet high along this area here to kind of supplement the overstory trees that are out there. Are you going to screen everything 100%? No, it's not going to happen.
Thank you.
Chair Schwartz?
Commissioner Casey.
I just wanted to say that I'm glad to hear you say that your expansion is not the only step that you're looking at improving the piece of property. My thought was it is chaotic and it's unorganized, and I think the two need to be linked. If you're going to expand, there has to be improvement in the lay of that land. And I just wanted to say that I hear that from you. Is that correct?
Yes, of course. I mean, we have 11 self-storage facilities in the Twin City Metro. We have outdoor storage, not at all of them, but you know, some of them. And we like to feel and be known as a highly organized, professionally run organization, which we are. We've, you know, been a year into this and gotten to this point, and I think you'll be pleased, you know, once this, if this were to be approved and the asphalt's installed and the expansion, that it'll look much, much better than what it does today.
Is this your most recently acquired property?
No, when I say the Twin City Metro, we acquired one end of April in Schaefer, Minnesota. Just you know, Highway 8, Boris Lake, short of Taylor's Falls.
Chair Schwartz.
Commissioner Stevens.
I was wondering if, because we had said that you give them a year to take care of all the vehicles, you know, and everything, and get everything cleaned up. Is there any way before the spring that we could get things like the vehicles that maybe are not working anymore, before you start laying everything, to clean that up before, even during the winter, or get rid of some of those vehicles before that? Is that a possibility?
Certainly. I mean, we'll start addressing, you know, it's a good point. It's, you know, the flat tires, you know, I don't know if the tab thing is a requirement or not, but we'll start addressing that.
Okay.
I mean, we've already, like the, I don't even know what you call it. It's kind of like a homemade shed there. We've already told that tenant that he's going to need to vacate. So
Okay.
we're starting.
Okay, good, thank you.
My thought is, by enlarging the area, all we're gonna do is make a bigger eyesore than we have now. Granted, it's gonna be possibly a nicer looking eyesore, but it's still gonna look like a vehicle salvage yard, for lack of a better term, from up on Coon Rapids Boulevard. As far as the screening of, with the existing trees, the leaves are there maybe 4 to 5 months of the year. The rest of the time, the trees are offering basically zero screening. So I don't feel that the overstory trees that are there now is doing much of a job, or will do much of a job, of blocking visibility. So unless something drastically changes between now and next month, I'm strongly leaning towards not supporting the proposal.
Chair Schwartz.
Well, Commissioner Knobloch.
I just want to concur with the chair that the site is considerably chaotic, and expanding it would be, improper choice of how to address it, and that it would, and that consideration for something like a pole barn with a covering, that would go a long way towards helping mitigate the site and cleaning it up, because it, unfortunately, it is an extremely high visible area, and I think it's time that this commission, as well as others, look into the future direction of what efforts we can actually do that works with the business and with the city's plans, and that we can kind of help clean this area up a little bit.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Stevens.
I'm just a little concerned. I certainly agree that it's an eyesore. I certainly agree that the visibility, especially as it's sort of a gateway, it's not that it's just visible, but it's sort of a gateway to our community for people who are entering the city, makes it problematic. But I think one thing that I want to make sure doesn't get lost is an understanding that the restrictions we're talking about here aren't in place currently, and this is an opportunity to impose some restrictions that, if we don't act, won't be imposed. And you know, we have an applicant who's willing to work with us, and if we don't work with them, there's always a possibility that we'll have a different owner in the future who maybe isn't as interested in taking steps that are proactive. So I just wanted to add my thought that we should view this as an opportunity to address some of the concerns that we have. I don't think we're going to get to an ideal situation with this property and this place, and what we'd all, you know, everyone would love to see a feature amenity in such a visible location. I mean, that isn't going to happen no matter what we do here. So I think we need to make sure that we are taking advantage of the opportunity that's in front of us. And we have, and they want to continue it until next month. So I think we can give, you know, detailed feedback about what we'd like to see here, and hopefully in the ensuing month we can see some changes and some improvements to this plan. But I think we do have an opportunity here.
Well, as far as your comments that if we were to not approve that there's nothing we could do, that's not correct. Code right now requires curb and gutter, so that we could require curb and gutter to be put in to the existing blacktop area. Also, code prohibits parking on the grass, so a lot of those vehicles could be removed right now because of the code enforcement issues. So that alone would clean up the visibility of the area considerably.
That's true, but we couldn't restrict what they're storing on the site. And so we can force them to pave it, but we could still have all of the miscellaneous stuff sitting out there that's sitting out there now, and a future owner could go into even more undesirable in terms of the mix of things that are on the property than what's there currently.
Well, it's certainly something we can consider further next month.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Casey.
I personally would like to see some landscape plans for next month that would, you know, can some surround that drainage pond, or is that even feasible, or does that belong to the railroad? And just kind of what the landscaping plan would be. That seems to be a key to future screening anyway of that site. So
Commissioner Casey and Chair Schwartz, you really can't do any plantings underneath in there because it's underneath the power line easement. So that's really, you're limited as to what you can do there, either store vehicles or a stormwater pond. You can't put structures underneath there, and you can't plant trees in there.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Harlicker, if we were to deny the petition, is the stormwater storage area still something that will be going in or must go in?
Chair Schwartz, no. We would leave the site as is and bring it up to code, because when this site plan was approved, curb and gutter were required. Just never got installed. So they'd have to put in curb and gutter and move the vehicles off the grass and keep them on the pavement.
Thank you.
Could I just add one thing? You know, and I hear your concern. I hear you very clearly. I'm not sure what the city is losing by approving the expansion. It's a very expensive expansion. So you know, it'll be more organized. I get the eyesore thing. I do. But I'm not sure what the city would be losing by approving it, is all. I hear your concern, I respect that, but this is a big commitment to improvement, both by the appearance and financially.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Harlinger, you're recommending we open the public hearing and then continue the public hearing and the case till next month?
Correct.
At this time, we'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone here in the audience wishing to speak to this case? Anyone wishing to speak to this case? Seeing none, we will continue the public hearing till next month. And do we then need a motion to continue it for next month?
So moved.
Second?
Motion by Stevenson, second by Stevens, to continue this case till our September meeting.
Chair Schwartz, I believe the meeting is the 15th.
September 15th. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Stevenson.
I would just say to the applicant that, you know, obviously there's a lot of skepticism here about this, and I think that a lot of this is going to ride upon what you come up with for a landscaping plan and the amount to which you're able to screen from the boulevard and East River Road. I would encourage you also to think about landscaping even in the area that you're expanding. You know, if you can plant some trees in that area so it's not just a big mass of, doesn't look like a huge parking lot of unsavory vehicles all the time. I mean, I think there might be ways to be creative to try and make this not the eyesore that it currently is.
That makes sense. I mean, you're going to see a massive asphalt. You're not, I don't see how you're ever going to get away from that aerial view from the overpass. But you know, whether it's arborvitaes or whatever that grow fast, that kind of grow into like a hedge, or whatever it might be, we'll certainly, you know, look into that.
But you could imagine having, you know, parking lots frequently have islands. Those islands frequently have landscaping that can break up a mass like that. There are ways, I think, that I would just encourage you to be creative in thinking about this.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails and it's continued to the September meeting. Our second case today, our first piece of new business, planning case 16-18, a land use amendment, Vanman Architects, 10110 Woodcrest Drive, Spirit of Grace Church. Mr. Harlinger.
Yes, Commissioners and Chair Schwartz. The property is a 2-acre triangular piece outlined here in black. On the east is Woodcrest Drive, and I believe that's the building center, Woodcrest Park, and then to the south, single-family residential development. The site is currently home to a Spirit of Grace Church. They're the ones who are applying for the zone change and land use plan amendment. A brief history on how this site got to where it is. Back in the mid-'80s, this whole area here was zoned high-density residential. As Woodcrest Drive was being planned out and constructed, the city rezoned the area between Woodcrest out to Highway 10 as general commercial and left all the property over here on the west side of Woodcrest as high-density residential. Next step that happened was the city was involved in a land swap with a local developer, and the developer gave the city this area here, which is now the southern part of Woodcrest, and in exchange they got land up on the north end of Woodcrest Drive. Left out of that exchange was a small triangular piece. When the city acquired this, it was changed to conservancy, and then the land on the north end was also changed to general commercial. So this remnant piece was left as high-density residential. When the church submitted their applications in 2001, places of worship were a conditional use in the high-density residential district. So there was no reason for them to apply for a zone change. As time went on, they constructed their church in 2004, and that's what you see now. They do have plans to expand. It's hard to get out. In this, to the north of the church in this area here, a small expansion to the sanctuary. In order for them to do that, they need to have the site zoning change from high-density residential to office. The reason for that is that it ties into how you measure impervious surface. With the office district, impervious surface is measured by the size of the building. With the high-density residential, it's measured by the building and the parking lot. And under the current zoning, they can't put their expansion for the sanctuary in place because it can't meet the definition or the impervious surface definition. The office description for office is predominantly administrative, professional, and clerical services, including medical clinics. It includes limited commercial uses, generally compatible with residential uses. So it really reflects the current use and likely future use of that parcel. High-density residential districts are really identified for, as the title reflects, high-density residential apartment buildings at a gross density of 7 to 30 units per acre. Realistically, you're not going to get an apartment on that building because it's on that site because it's too small. The site is really more suited for an office land use designation and an office zoning. At this point, the church is not proposing any sort of expansion along with this rezoning request. That's at some point in the future, and they will come before the commission as a separate application if and when they decide to go through with that process. I think with the future uses of that building, because of the way it's laid out, it's probably is now and always will be used as some sort of place of worship, just the way it's laid out with the sanctuary. And if not that, maybe some type of place for assembly. That's just the way it's laid out and the way the parking is laid out. So with that, staff is recommending approval of planning case 16-18 and 16-19, which is a land use plan amendment and zone change from high-density residential to office. I recommend we open the public hearing for both items at the same time and then do separate recommendations for each planning case.
Commission, any questions for Mr. Harlicker?
Chair Schwartz.
Commissioner Casey?
So from your land use map you had up there, the color-coded one, that little triangle is the only high-density residential left in that area?
Commissioner Casey, that's correct.
Okay, so why, right? You know, I mean,
It's a remnant piece that
yeah,
kind of got forgotten.
Yeah, it needs to be tidied up. One other thing, so you're talking about separate, you're talking about 16, 18, 16, 19?
Correct.
In order to separate the,
Yep, do
open them
separate
together
recommendations for
in
each
separate recommendations.
Separate motions.
Correct. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Stevenson?
I just wonder, you know, so the, part of the issue with this site now is that it's a little island of high-density residential surrounded by a bunch of stuff that isn't that. And now you're talking about changing it to office, a little island of office surrounded by a bunch of stuff that isn't that. Was there, and, you know, I think that, I'm not trying to be a critic here, I think the proposal makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons, but I just wonder if changing it to either the general commercial or even community commercial, would that solve the problems that the church has? And maybe if at some point someone was looking to redevelop in the area, some use that is compatible with what's going on across the street, it would make sense for that. I mean, it's kind of a harebrained thought, but.
Commissioner Stevens, I don't know specifically how that would help or hinder the church's future plans. I suspect that it probably would not impact it. The impervious surface coverage is probably measured for all the commercial districts similarly,
Right.
taking into consideration the size of the building. But given the size of that parcel and the need to get, if you put a retail use in there, and trying to get retail use and parking on that site, it just is, it's not gonna happen. It's too small. And the irregular shape even compounds the problem.
Thank you.
The setbacks are greater. There's a whole slew of things that start piling up once you go down that road.
Commission, any other questions for Mr. Harlicker? All right, at this time, we'll open a public hearing for both planning cases, 16-18, the land use amendment, and 16-19, the zone change. Is there anyone here wishing to speak to either of these two cases? Anyone wishing to speak? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Commission will take 16-18 first. Thoughts and/or motions?
Well, I recommend in planning case 1618 to approve the amendments to the city's comprehensive land use plan to change the land use designation from high-density residential to office based on the following three verses. Should we read all three of those, or do they need to be read?
Sure.
Commissioner Johnson.
You can just say it's referenced in the report.
Okay.
if you like.
Okay, as referenced in the report.
Second.
Motion by Stevens, second by Stevenson. Any discussion? Commissioner Casey.
I had one afterthought for Mr. Harlicker, if I might. This is a polling place, I think, in Ward 3. So any change like that would probably not impact its use as a polling place?
I don't think it would, maybe, no, it
Yeah.
shouldn't.
Okay, just for the upcoming elections. Thank you, that's all I had to ask.
Any other discussion? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. This is a decision, or a recommendation by the Planning Commission and decision by the City Council at the September 20th meeting. Next, we have planning case 16-19, the zone change.
Commissioner Schwartz, or Chair Schwartz, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Schmolke.
I recommend approval of the proposed zone change based on the findings as stated.
Second?
Motion by Schmolke, or Stephen, Motion by Schmolke, second by Stevens. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. This is a recommendation by the Planning Commission, and will be introduced by the City Council at the September 6th meeting. Thank you. Next, we have planning case 16-20, a land use amendment, local oil company of Anoka, at 2437, 2423, and 2405 Coon Rapids Boulevard. Mr. Harlicker.
Yeah, Chair Schwartz and Commission. This is a request for a land use plan amendment and zone change to change the land use designation from office to general commercial, and to change the zoning from office and high-density residential to general commercial. The three properties total 1.78 acres. There's currently buildings on both sites. Building on 2337 is a 3,500 square foot office building. It's currently occupied by the owner and accounting company. The other building at site 2423 and 2405 Coon Rapids Boulevard is a 16,200 square foot building. The building is currently partially occupied. Property was granted a conditional use permit for a 9,700 square foot furniture store in 1995, and in 1997 the owner received approval of a 6,500 square foot addition. Both these properties have been guided and zoned office since 1980. The building at 2437 has been there for, I went back through looking through city records and I couldn't find when it was initially built. However, it did receive a second floor addition and parking lot expansion in 1985. Adjacent land uses, you've got an older apartment building to the north, a restaurant, Pizza Hut. You've got some single-family residences in the back here, and you've got office buildings to the east. This narrow strip in this area here provides access to the back of this lot. That fronts on, I think it's 108th Avenue, maybe. But that belongs to this person here. However, it's guided office. You can see from the land use map, the apartment building is high-density residential. The other areas on the north side of Coon Rapids Boulevard is general commercial in red, general commercial, and then office and low-density residential here. Zoning, high-density residential, and this little black triangular piece somehow got included in the high-density residential district. Typically, zoning and land use designations follow property lines. We try to do that as often as we can, but for some reason, this little triangular piece was mixed, and it's guided high-density residential. But it does belong to 2405 Coon Rapids Boulevard. Then you've got the office and general commercial over here. The general commercial district, I think it better reflects the current use of the property and potential reuse of the site. It's a larger building. As an office building, as office designation, the whole building cannot be rented out to one tenant. You're limited to 15,000 square feet. So that's one of the issues here, is you've always got to have multiple tenants in that building. You can't lease it out to one tenant. This building here is small enough, so that would not be an issue. We were looking at this as an extension of the general commercial along the north side of Coon Rapids Boulevard. These sites sit along probably the most heavily traveled corridors in the city. There is a buffer to the apartment building in back. There's 30-foot buffer behind these properties here, and this here is a parking lot without much of a buffer. However, there is a large parking garage here. This triangular area here is wooded and provides a nice buffer to the backyard of that single-family residence there. Looked at the setback requirements for each of the different zoning districts, and by changing the zoning to general commercial, there is minimal nonconformities with the setbacks. The building setback required for both the office and general commercial is 25 feet and 50 feet from the single-family home. So at this point, this building here confirms with the 25-foot setback here, but not the 50 feet here. That won't change whether it's zoned office or general commercial. Both districts require a buffer yard between the apartment complex and that single-family home. The building here meets that buffer requirement now, and it will as general commercial. This structure here does not meet the requirement as office zoning, and it would not as general commercial. Looking at the intent of the office district, as with in the previous case, the office district is really set up to accommodate office type uses. With general commercial, you would be taking advantage of the traffic counts along Coon Rapids Boulevard. The buildings are laid out that they could be efficiently used as general commercial zoning. We looked at compatibility with a comprehensive plan, and the proposed land use amendment would help improve the viability of underused property along the boulevard by allowing a more variety of uses. It would curb the blighted characteristics and eliminate underutilized land uses along the boulevard. Again, it can be by rezoning this to general commercial. The site could become more of an asset to the boulevard than an underutilized building. We also looked at the compatibility with the Coon Rapids Boulevard Framework Plan, and the framework plan calls out for revitalization of obsolete, vacant, and weak areas. And by changing the land use designation and zoning to general commercial, the site would be more attractive for potential users. With that, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the proposed land use change from office to general commercial, and the zone change from office and high-density residential to general commercial. The applicant is in the audience tonight for questions and if he wants to give a brief presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Harlicker. Petitioner, have anything they'd like to add? Please state your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Gary Dean. I'm with Local Oil Company of Anoka, 4923 142nd Lane in Ramsey. I just want to say we purchased the property in 2009 with 2 existing retail tenants. We decided, you know, it was a good investment property at the time, and we felt obviously the use was all retail. The size of that building, 16,000 square foot, makes a perfect retail location. And coming to the point now, I've had several people that needed general commercial zoning. One of them was a pawn shop. He ended up going down the road because he said it's going to take a couple months to go through all this, and he wanted to move quickly. I just said, there's a point where I got to have this done so that I don't lose other potential tenants. So basically, I'm just looking to get this in conforming zoning for my needs.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Commission, any questions? All right, at this time, we'll open a public hearing for both planning case 16-20, the land use amendment, and 1621, the zone change. Is there anyone here wishing to speak to either of these two cases?
Yeah, already answered my question. Thank you.
All right. Seeing no one to speak, we'll close the public hearings. Commission, separate motions on each item, please.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Casey.
Regarding 1620 land use amendment, I move that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the, based on these following 4 findings listed as part of the recommendation.
Second?
Motion by Casey, second by Stevens. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. This is a recommendation by the Planning Commission with a decision by the City Council on September 20th. Next, we have the Planning Case 1621, the zone change.
In planning case 1620, I recommend approval of the proposed zone change based on the 5 following items that are written.
Second.
Motion by Stevens, second by Schmolke. Any further discussion?
That's Planning Case 1621?
1621, the zone change.
Okay, yep. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. This is a recommendation by the Planning Commission and will be introduced by the City Council at the September 6th meeting. There you go, sir. Thank you. Anything else for other business? Mr. Harlicker, any update on current development or?
Hospital's moving along. If you notice, if you've driven by there, they've got their directional signs up now to direct people around the construction site back there. I know they're working on the 3rd and 4th floor interior renovations. I believe they started doing some of the work out there where the parking ramp is going to go, so they are moving along. We did get plans submitted for the school vehicle maintenance building over on Dogwood. So that's moving forward. They're trying to work out title issues with a plat, so that's what's holding that project up. For next month, we've got a few items. We've got a site plan for a Honda dealership over on property behind the post office on 102nd and Goldenrod. They're looking at putting in a 3-story building with indoor showrooms. And the applicant for that is the Chrysler dealership in town. We've got another site plan to consider, dental office building up on Northdale. I think it's 3360 or 3460 Northdale Boulevard. It's the only vacant property up on Northdale by the McKay dealership up there.
By the which dealership?
Pedersen Floral Properties.
Oh.
They will be in for a zone change next month.
as well as a lot split. One of the larger lots over on the east side is, they're gonna split it in two. So they'll have 2 lots there. And then the Mayflower Properties project.
Sounds like we have a full month ahead of us. Anything from the commission?
Move to adjourn.
Motion by Stevenson,
Second.
second by Stevens. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting's adjourned.